What happened to Planet Coaster 2? Some people love it, a lot of people hate it, and I reckon I'm somewhere in between. It's certainly got the community divided, and I think we're all a bit unsure as to where things are headed for this long-awaited sequel. In this video, we're going to recap the rocky launch of Planet Coaster 2, discuss the positives, the negatives, and my favourite kind of soup. Just kidding, I will never tell anyone my favourite soup. Well, where to begin? There has been no shortage of negativity within the Planet Coaster community since the launch, back in early November, especially prevalent on Reddit. But let's be honest, Redditors are always unhappy. Whether it be the bugs, the lack of themes, or the experimental new path tool, people have found the flaws and they're shouting about it. For me, it's got to be the lack of assets, or more so the choice of incredibly niche themes. Planet Coaster, Resort, Viking, Aquatic, and Mythology. Aquatic and Resort I can excuse, it's a water park game. But Viking and Mythology, they're so specific. I know you can certainly use a bunch of the pieces universally, but not for the most part. Geekism has done a great video on building the original themes with the assets we have, which you should definitely check out. But should we really be exhausting our creative energy, finding clever ways of repurposing awkward pieces? Whether it be a raging Minotaur animatronic, or a fence with some ornate Celtic detailing, for me, it honestly prevents the use of those pieces. All I want are plain assets with the ability to add my own detailing based on the theme I'm going for. Even if they insisted on doing these silly Viking and mythology themes, surely they should be part of some kind of DLC, rather than the first main themes we get in the game. Now, one could argue the base themes from Planet Coaster 1, pirate, western, fantasy and sci-fi, are niche, except that those themes are incredibly common in real theme parks. You know a theme that isn't very common? Flippin' Viking! Whilst on the subject of the original themes, a brilliant suggestion, and wonderfully executed might I add, was from DavCR on Reddit for Frontier to release a legacy scenery collection. This could be a carefully curated selection of the most used and loved items beautifully remastered for the new engine. Will it happen? No, but it's nice to dream. Ultimately, as of right now, I feel very restricted by what we have in the game. I'm currently building a very British water park. We're 5 episodes in, and I'm struggling. Every time I get excited about a new attraction or a section to build, I feel limited by the tools and assets available. Don't worry, I'm not ignorant to the old adage of a workman blaming his tools. Maybe I am just hopeless at building, but the video wouldn't be very interesting if I just berated myself for 10 minutes straight, would it? On the upside, the hope would be that once Planet Coaster 2 reaches the end of development and all the DLCs are released, we will have a full game with a myriad of build pieces, rides, shops and coasters to build the park of your dreams without limitation. But we're talking literal years until that's the case. Bloody blimey. Speaking of rides and shops, there are some questionable choices. Like, what is this? Yes, it's a nice novelty vintage ride, but how many times am I going to place this in one of my parks? Seems like a waste of a good ride slot for something more versatile. And surely when it comes to shops, we should have at least been given the full selection from Planet Coaster 1, especially considering the shops we do have are a mix of World's Fair and base game brands. But anyway, before I get myself too worked up, let's talk about some of the positive things people are doing in the game. There's a fantastic creator called Taggy3D who's discovered a myriad of clever tricks and glitches, essentially forcing the game to do things it's not supposed to do. Invisible paths, square queue lines, drone shows, advanced collision detection, and even a bloody tornado. But generally just finding complex workarounds for features that should ultimately be implemented into the game, so I hope Frontier are watching his content and taking note. Whilst we're doing some shoutouts, another creator who's definitely mastered the game already is Yura, a content creator who's featured on this channel a few times. But my goodness, look at this stuff. He's completely contradicting my entire argument here by absolutely nailing the Western theme with the pieces we already have in the game. I can safely say he's one of the best creators in Planet Coaster, hands down. You'll find links to everyone mentioned in the description. Anyway, let's start spinning some negatives into a positive. A big complaint from the community was regarding the flumes, the associated bugs, and the poor physics. However, plot twist, Frontier have listened and responded. Slide physics are to be improved and dynamic deformation to be implemented. Whether all of this will be done using actual calculated physics or through animation, we don't know, but an improvement nonetheless. This announcement came alongside a massive and quite intense apology to the community for the extremely premature paid DLC released before fixing the base game. It takes a lot for developers and publishers to put their hands up and admit fault, but Frontier have done it, and made some big promises to the future of the game, and I believe in them. Also, big shout out to Arthur Tolmie for being the one to make the apology. It can't have been easy. But yes, bugs and community complaints are being addressed and fixed at an encouraging rate, and as previously mentioned, the complete game with all DLCs promises to be a fantastic addition to the franchise. The game director, Rich Newbold, remains forever positive and genuinely seems wholly invested in making the game the best that it can be, and it's truly appreciated. We've received some fantastic features in the sequel, including pulls and flumes, customizable flat rides, animated scenery, switch tilt and drop tracks, and much more. Can't really complain too much, can we? I've mentioned it many times, but my goodness, the lighting. I had great fun making this indoor pool, which Frontier actually referenced on one of their live streams, which is lovely. Anyway, less about me. It's time to get a second opinion. I spoke to one of the biggest names in Planet Coaster geekism to find out what he thinks. John T. Sparrow. Hello.
Hello. Sounded like you were going to read out a list of my crimes then.
You are here. You've been summoned to court, and we're going to... No, it's lovely to have you here. Thank you for joining me. I just want to really see how you feel about the game at the moment. How do you feel about Planet Coaster 2 right now?
I'm going to be honest. In many ways, I'm enjoying it, but I think the way I feel can be summed up in a single word, which is disappointed, because I feel like it had so much promise, so much goodwill from the first game, from Planet Zoo as well, and I really do feel like, for whatever reason, Frontier have sort of squandered that a little bit with the way the game has been launched. It's a shame, and I will say this: I am still enjoying my time in the game. I haven't been in it for the last couple of weeks due to illness over Christmas. I wasn't well. But I have been enjoying my time in it, and I am still enjoy working in the game, but only in a very specific area of the game, which is building pretty things with the scenery. And as soon as you kind of step away from that sort of creator bubble, that you see that the game is really, really quite ropey in a lot of areas, unfortunately. And I will say that I like what they've done since launch, barring the DLC release. I think was a little tone deaf, but the updates that we've been getting have been pretty solid and are definitely in the right direction. But I mean, I don't think we'll ever really truly know as to what the sort of perfect storm was that had the game come out when it did in the version it did, I guess. But it definitely feels rushed. It definitely feels like it came out too early. It definitely feels like they haven't... It's a team that didn't necessarily work through PC1 and didn't necessarily see how PC1 shifted into the game it ended up becoming due to the sort of request from the community. It does feel very much like Planet Coaster 2 is a facsimile. It's like a weird copy. It's like they designed Planet Coaster 2 after listening to an audio description of Planet Coaster 1. You know, it feels just all a little off, and a lot of like 2 steps forwards, 1 steps back in a lot of ways, unfortunately. Saying that, as a digital pile of Lego, that's its strongest suit. That's basically the only way I feel like you can play this game at the moment. The new paths, I think, are fantastic. I know some people have struggled with them because they are a lot more sort of in-depth, but I really enjoy the new pathing system. I love all of the scenery. I'm not one of the people who feels like we have to have Western and Fairy Tale. I do understand that argument, but for me personally, I'm happy just to have fun new pieces. The fact that you can scale them, like, there is enough there for me now to still be enjoying the game. But I do think as a creator that is almost predominantly focused on this game, yes, I do cover other stuff, but you know as well how it's tenfold how a Planet Coaster video performs compared to anything else you cover on your channel. It's exactly the same for myself and a lot of other creators who are really focused on the Frontier games. So I think as a creator who isn't necessarily tied to the game, but certainly understands that there is a benefit for me to kind of have like a higher tolerance of, I guess. Sorry if I can't say that on your channel, you can bleep it. But like, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like I'm probably a little bit more accepting of the flaws because it behooves me to deal with them better. And because of that, I very much enjoyed being called a shill numerous times over the last month or two with with the game, because I've just managed to find some enjoyment in it.
Yeah, no, you raised some really brilliant points there. I completely relate to the playing the game in isolation, as you said. Like, when I was getting tired of building my current park series, when I removed myself and I thought, I'm just going to build something, I completely isolated on my own, not record it. It felt freeing. It felt good. It felt fun. And equally, when you said about the Planet Coaster 2 team being disconnected from Planet Coaster 1, 100%. There was some moments during the release process where they were talking to each other, and you could just tell they don't know the original game, which is quite upsetting, really, for us dedicated players that have been there for 8 years. But it's how companies work, isn't it? You can't really complain.
This stuff turns over, and obviously they had a few other misses with other IPs over the last few years, and because of that they've had to sort of streamline, and and you can definitely see we're seeing the fruits of that now, unfortunately.
Yes. 100%.
What the future looks like, I honestly don't know. I mean, obviously I would love them to just keep putting time and effort into updates, working on new stuff. I personally, I'm happy with DLC. I understand why DLC is a thing. I understand that it helps fund further development. I just think it needs to be more fleshed out and better timed than the one they came out with. I'm more than happy to sort of help sort of fund future development, especially if the initial numbers weren't there for them to financially warrant that, So it's not that I don't want to see DLC, but I really want to see those DLCs come alongside some very feature-full and just sort of very like content-aware updates. Just like really listen to what people are looking for. The stuff they're showing off with like slide physics, like it's all real nice, but I feel like there's other bigger stuff that needs to be addressed. But I understand that. Showing a cool tube moving on a slide is quite a good thing to show off, as opposed to like, we've just fixed the game now so that guests ride stuff. You know what I mean? Like it's difficult to kind of show that off in a little GIF or whatever to sort of drum up interest. But yeah, really, that's the real issue I have at the moment. Is I build this lovely stuff. The game looks beautiful. I think personally, I do partly prefer the slightly more realistic look of Zoo. Overall, and I assumed that more sort of natural and like toned down color palette of Zoo was a progression of the engine as opposed to a stylistic choice of the game, if that makes sense.
Yes.
And then seeing Planet Coaster 2 go back to a more sort of cartoony, vibrant style, it's clear that it's obviously a design choice as opposed to just the sort of getting better at making lighting look well, because Planet Coaster 2's lighting is incredible, but it does get a little bit lost sometimes in the sort of very oversaturated color palette and light palette they've got. So I do prefer the look of Planet Zoo to some extent, but I love all the scenery. I think the parts are fantastic. I love how they've done a great job with how the themes we have are obviously very stylized, but also all of the individual pieces are so generic that you can use them in everything. I mean, we look at the Viking theme, for instance. It's basically just wood. It's wood and stone. It's all quite nice and plain. Yes, there's a couple of sort of really Viking-y things, but I think if we'd have had that theme in the original release of Planet Coaster 1, everything would have had a dragon head or big horns on it, or so, you know what I mean? That's clearly a step in the right direction. So I'll always try and find the good stuff. I'll always try and do the poop sandwich, the good bag goods type thing. So I really adore the scenery. I'm having a lot of fun playing in the game. It looks great. It sounds great. The disappointing thing is when you finish the scenery of a roller coaster station or a pool or whatever, and you press go, and the guests just amble about and don't
not interested.
Actually see, and that's we'll all build these fake things. I built fake parks and fake rides and stuff, and a lot of people do. But the whole point of this is so that you can see the little digital guys run around and experience the stuff you built, and unfortunately that's where it sort of really starts to fall away, unfortunately.
Yeah, agree with all of that. I mean, well, you just answered all my questions in one. Court is adjourned.
Am I free to go, sir? Your Honour.
You're not guilty, not guilty. But you're right. There's a lot of positive things about it. They're doing some right things. They just need to fix it. They need to fix the base game. Before, as you said, I've also got no qualms against the DLCs. They've done it well in Planet Coaster 1. They did it well in Planet Zoo. So as long as they've got this solid base game to start with, then the DLCs are fine. But we just need to get there first. And what that looks like, I'm not 100%, but I think we're heading in the right direction.
Yeah, I think timing wise, it was very difficult as well because that radio silence isn't helping anything right now.
Yeah.
So I think they really need to come back now in January and sort of real hit the ground running with show us what you're working on, show us your plans, give us a bit of a roadmap.
Yes, that would be good.
That would go a long way, I think.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Geekism, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you as always, and I hope we can do so again soon.
It was good to be here. Thanks for having me.
It's safe to say the community have mixed feelings on the game, but all I can say right now is that I'm genuinely struggling to build in a way I never dealt with in Planet Coaster 1. Is that down to the game, or is that just down to me and the fact I've been playing Planco for over 8 years and I'm a bit burnt out? What are your thoughts on it? Do you have faith that the game will become exactly what we want it to be? Are you happy with everything as it is now? Let me know, as I'd love to hear your thoughts. I've got over 350 Planet Coaster videos on the channel, and I've started branching out to other creative management simulation games, so make sure to stick around if you enjoyed the video. My name is Moomin Littlesocks, my favourite soup is broccoli and Stilton, and I'll catch you next time. For God's sake, I wasn't supposed to mention the soup.